The well is still there. It's underneath a bar in Soho, Manhattan, 129 Spring Street, sealed under the floor and unreachable. If you go there today and order a drink, you are standing directly above the place where a 22-year-old woman's body was found on January 2nd, 1800. Nobody was ever punished for putting her there. What happened instead was one of the most extraordinary legal events in American history. A 2-day murder trial in which the accused man was defended by both Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, working together 4 years before they tried to kill each other on a dueling ground in New Jersey. The jury deliberated for 5 minutes. 5. And the woman at the center of all of it, Elma Sands, known to everyone who loved her as Elma, has been a footnote in her own story ever since. Stay with me, because this one has everything. In the summer of 1799, Elma Sands moved into a boarding house at 208 Greenwich Street in Lower Manhattan. She was 22 years old, a Quaker, and she had come to the city to be near family. The house was run by her cousin, Catherine Rean, and Catherine's husband, Elias, a modest, respectable household, the kind of place where a young woman could live safely while she found her footing in a city that was growing faster than anyone quite knew how to manage. New York in 1799 was not the city it would become. It was a place of roughly 60,000 people, wooden buildings pressed close together, unpaved streets that turned to mud in the rain, and a social fabric held together by a small number of powerful families, Quaker meeting houses, and an emerging class of merchants and tradesmen who were building the republic from the ground up. It was also, at this particular moment, a city in the grip of a crisis. Yellow fever had ravaged Lower Manhattan for years running. Clean water was not a given, it was a political issue. A company called the Manhattan Company had recently been chartered to bring fresh water to the city. They had sunk wells. The one in Lispenard Meadow, not far from Greenwich Street, was one of them. Into this world walked Elma Sands, living quietly in her cousin's house, working, attending meetings, and going about her life. And then sometime that autumn, she met Levi Weeks. At 23 years old, Levi Weeks was a carpenter by trade, though that description undersells him. He was talented, ambitious, and connected. His older brother Ezra was one of the most successful builders in New York, a man who had worked on projects for the city's wealthiest families. Levi lived and worked in that shadow, taking on jobs, building a name for himself. He was also, by most accounts, charming. He and Elma began a relationship. The exact nature of it, how serious, how committed, how private, was contested at trial and has never been fully resolved. What the evidence suggests is that Elma believed they were engaged. She told people close to her that Levi had promised to marry her. She may have been in love with him in the way that a young woman who has never been in love before is in love completely and without enough caution. Levi's feelings are harder to read. He was a man of his time and class. He did not leave a diary. What we do know is that on the evening of December 22nd, 1799, Elma Sands left 208 Greenwich Street and did not come back. Before she left that evening, Elma told her cousin Catherine something. She said she was going to be secretly married that night to Levi Weeks. Catherine watched her go. She heard the front door close at around 8 o'clock. She did not see who Elma left with. At 10 o'clock, Levi Weeks arrived at the boarding house and asked where Elma was. He seemed, by the accounts of those present, genuinely alarmed to find she wasn't there. He said he had not been with her. He said he had no idea where she was. And then, and this detail has never been fully explained, the household seemed to have simply waited. A few days after Elma disappeared, someone found her muff, the hand warmer she had been carrying when she left, near the Manhattan well in Lispenard Meadow. On January 2nd, 1800, workers pulled her body from that well. Her neck had been broken before she went in. The city was immediate in its conclusion. Levi Weeks had been courting Elma Sands. A witness came forward who claimed to have seen Weeks at the well the Sunday before the murder, apparently measuring or inspecting it. Other witnesses placed him with Elma the night she disappeared. A grand jury indicted him for murder. What happened next is where the story becomes something else entirely. Ezra, Levi's brother, had money and connections, and he used both. He retained 3 of the most prominent lawyers in New York City to defend Levi at trial: Henry Brockholst Livingston, Aaron Burr, and Alexander Hamilton. Let me put those last 2 names in context. By 1800, Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton were engaged in one of the most bitter political rivalries in the young republic. They had clashed over Hamilton's attempts to block Burr's career at almost every turn. They would, in 4 years, meet on the dueling ground at Weehawken, New Jersey, where Hamilton would be shot and die the following day. In March of 1800, they sat at the same defense table and worked together to get Levi Weeks acquitted. The trial lasted 2 days. March 31st and April 1st, 1800. It ran through the night, the candles burning down as witness after witness took the stand. The courtroom was packed. The newspapers were watching. This was, in ways that people at the time were only beginning to understand, the first media circus in American legal history. The prosecution built its case on circumstantial evidence. The witnesses who placed Weeks near the well, the testimony of those who'd seen him with Elma that evening, the fact that he had been courting a woman who ended up dead in a well he had apparently been examining days before she disappeared. The defense had different strategies for different jurors. Burr and Livingston leaned into the possibility of suicide, emphasizing Elma's emotional state, suggesting she had been unstable, that she might have ended her own life. Hamilton took a more direct approach. Someone else did this. The prosecution had the wrong man. The evidence was incomplete, circumstantial, and could not be trusted. Together, they were formidable. Burr was methodical, precise, cold. Hamilton was passionate and persuasive. The combination dismantled the prosecution's case piece by piece over the course of 2 long days and an even longer night. On the morning of April 2nd, 1800, the jury went out. They came back in 5 minutes. Not guilty. The public did not accept this. The courtroom, by several accounts, erupted. People had formed a view of what had happened to Elma Sands, and a 5-minute deliberation did not match it. Levi Weeks was acquitted in law, but convicted in the court of public opinion so thoroughly that he could no longer walk the streets of New York without hostility. He left the city. He eventually settled in Natchez, Mississippi, where he became a successful architect and lived out his life in relative comfort. Dying in 1819 at 43 years old, the judge, John Lansing, drew sharp criticism for his handling of the case, particularly his instructions to the jury. He continued his career, eventually becoming Chancellor of New York, and then, one evening in December 1829, almost 30 years after the trial, Lansing left his hotel in Manhattan to post a letter. He was never seen again. His disappearance has never been explained. Finally, there is Catherine Ring. Catherine, who had watched Elma leave that night, who had testified at the trial, who had sat in that courtroom for 2 days and listened to lawyers she had never wronged demolish the case for justice for the young woman she had loved, like a sister. When the verdict came in, Catherine Ring stood up. She pointed. Accounts differ on whether it was at Hamilton specifically or at the defense team, and she said, in the Quaker plain speech she had grown up with, "If thee dies a natural death, I shall think there is no justice in heaven." 4 years later, Alexander Hamilton was shot by Aaron Burr in a duel at Weehawken and died the following day. Whether you believe in curses or not, people have been noting that detail for over 2 centuries. Nobody was ever charged with the murder of Elma Sands. The historical consensus, though it is not unanimous, is that Levi Weeks almost certainly killed her. The evidence points in his direction. The motive points in his direction. The behavior of a man who showed up at the boarding house at 10 o'clock that night asking where Elma was, in a way that struck those present as performed rather than genuine, it points in his direction. The trial itself is a landmark. It is the first murder trial in United States history for which a full transcript was published and preserved. The newspapers covered it in real time in ways that had never happened before. Modern historians of American law point to the case as the beginning of something, the moment when murder became a public event, when the press and the courtroom and the reading public became entangled in a way they have never fully separated since. And Elma Sands, 22 years old, a Quaker woman from Orange County who moved to the city to be near her family and fell in love with a man who may have killed her for it. Her name appears in the history books only because of the famous men who shaped her case, the lawyers, the judge, the accused. She did not get a memorial. She did not get justice. The well that holds her story is sealed under the floor of the bar, where people drink and laugh on Friday nights and have no idea she was ever there. Catherine Ring said there may be no justice in heaven. I am not sure she was wrong. If you want to know more about the trial itself, the full transcript was published in 1800 and has been reprinted. It is a genuinely strange document. You can read Hamilton and Burr at work, cross-examining witnesses, building arguments. You can read the thing that convinced a jury in 5 minutes. And if this is the kind of story you come here for, the ones with the powerful walked free, and the names of the dead became footnotes. Subscribe for more.